But first, we begin with the breaking news coming out of the Nigerian capital, Abuja, where the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has partially lifted sanctions slammed on the military junta in the Republic of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. All financial sanctions have been lifted except political sanctions, which, however, will remain in place against the military regimes in the West African countries. The partial lifting of sanctions was announced at an extraordinary summit of ECOWAS heads of state and government meeting where the regional bloc asked the military rulers of the three countries to return to the negotiation table. ECOWAS had in August wielded the big stick, closing land and air borders against the three West African countries. All right, now to our major stories. There seems to be a crack on the walls of organized labor unions in Nigeria ahead of the planned protests on February 27 and 28, as the Trade Union Congress, TUC, has warned that the action being pushed by the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, could be a recipe for anarchy. According to the TUC, the situation in Nigeria is too tense as a result of the prevailing hunger across the country to embark on any protest. While the TUC said it will not join in the protest, the NLC says it is determined to go ahead with its plan to protest the seeming hardship across the country following the astronomical increase in the prices of goods and services in the wake of the petrol subsidy removal last year and the depreciation of the Nigerian currency, the naira. Pockets of protests have broken out in Kano, Niger, Oyo, and Osun, among other states, with protesters urging the federal government and state governments to take decisive steps to bring the hardship to an end. Several videos have also surfaced online showing citizens lamenting the high cost of living and urging President Bola Tinubu to intervene. The big question on the lips of many now is whether the planned protest by NLC will still hold or not. Well, joining us in the studio to provide answers to this question and more is a political and social affairs analyst, Conrad Utuaan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And also from our Lagos studio is public affairs analyst Achude, who will be helping us to understand what's going on in the country. And I start with you, Conrad, here. Talk to us about this issue at hand. I mean, can Nigeria's economy actually take another strike again? The TUC is warning the NLC that though we are all labor unions, nonetheless, we feel that you should just halt this protest at the moment. What do you make of all of that?
So you see, to start with, I think the labor union or the labor movement is beginning to lose touch with the reality of the Nigerian people on the street. The divisions that have presently been expressed, like we see between TUC and NLC, clearly shows a clear disconnect from what society demands from labor unions. It is important to discern the times. Under the present circumstances where Nigerians are beginning to sell their children, where people are running down trucks on our highways just in search of food, with all the protests springing up across the country, I think it is, really unwise at a time like this to begin to embark on street protests. And I think the Nigerian people are beginning to lose confidence. Labor leaders are becoming protest merchants. It looks like, things come up, they boil up, allow them to build up momentum, and then you hear some conversations behind the screen, and then at the end of the day, these things really don't turn out. So the people are beginning to lose confidence in the labor unions. But to be more direct to your question, I think it is not a proper time to stage a protest across the country. It is quite difficult. People are going through hard times. Nigerians are in their dire straits. And of course, because of the political divisions that still exist, the divisions have not healed yet. We're less than a year after the 2023 general election. So it will be an opportunity for politicians to cash in on it, for hoodlums to cash in on it, for people with several interests, to cash in, take over. And the labor union must also understand the responsibility that comes with this kind of, you don't plod the entire country into crisis and then shy away from being, alleged to have committed treason. You know, it will amount to treasonable felony if they throw this country into chaos.
Well, and I come to you, Achude. The Director of State Services, Nigeria Secret Police, is actually warning the labor unions to be very careful because we may lose our country in the process of having this strike in the midst of this hunger protests across the country. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, I'm trying to figure what my colleague and brother there at the Abuja end is trying to say. You know, look, the reality, I mean, he has established a template for what is going on in the country today. Trucks are being stopped on the road. People are, you know, forcefully taking food items from those trucks and all the other crises that we're having. And then he also says that the NLC seems to have lost touch with reality, with what Nigerians are saying, accusing them of embarking on protests here and there, and then withdrawing from the protest. And if the issue is what Nigerians are feeling and what Nigerians are doing about what they are feeling, then Nigerians have taken to the streets to express their angst. And so if you are talking about a union that is in tune with the thinking of Nigerians right now, it is the position of the NLC. You know, any other position, really, to keep quiet and pretend that nothing is happening in this country, to keep quiet and pretend that the families of workers themselves are not going through very excruciating, you know, hard times, you know, to keep quiet, you know, and pretend that all is well, I think it's an act of irresponsibility on the part of any serious, any genuine pro-people, you know, working organization. Part of the problem that people have had with NLC over the years is their inability, or labor, not just NLC, labor in general, is their inability, you know, to carry out whatever, you know, threat they have made against the government, maybe to pull the government back from either inaction or certain actions they want to take, you know, for the purpose of achieving, you know, certain ends. And so there is nothing, again, you can warn the NLC as much as you want, but the reality is that the right of a people to protest unjust government, unjust public policies is an inalienable right. And any attempt to prevent a people from exercising such right is in itself diametrical to, you know, democracy, especially if we are still saying that we are in a democracy. But let us also say this. Who are the harbingers of what is happening today? Really, it is the government. And this brings us to the warning that the DSS itself issued to the Buhari administration when they wanted to embark on this, on the removal of the fuel subsidy. We saw what happened in 2012, which this APC government latched onto and criticized that government, you know, to no ends. We saw that, you know, in the wake of in the attempt to remove a subsidy by the Buhari administration, they were warned by the DSS that could lead to all manners of social agitation and protest by Nigerians. And that is capable. And then they also warned that they should be careful, the government should be careful because of the spate of coups that are taking place in other West African countries and not try to create a situation for chaos and anarchy. That was the advice by the DSS to the government. And so, for the government to have embarked on this, it's an indication that, I mean, it cannot be because they are not aware of the advice that was given. So this should have been anticipated. The reality is that this is about what is going on now, and the protest you are seeing is not about the convenience of Nigerians. It's about survival. It's about the fact that they cannot carry out anything meaningful today. You know, and so if the NLC wants to embark on an action to to protest to the government that, look, things are difficult. Things are, because they are living it every single day. You know, and so, and then I do not even see any division within the ranks of labor, because NLC itself is an independent, you know, labor center. The TUC is an independent labor center. So if the NLC wants to embark on an action, there is no condition that says that TUC must be part of that action. Say vice versa if the TUC you know, wants to embark on an action.
All right. A very interesting submission there, but I'll come back to you, Utuaan. Let's talk about the failure of the federal government to be able to hold on to its own baggage. The unions, the NLC, saying that, look, there was a 15-point agenda signed with us on October 2nd last year. They were to provide CNG buses, they were to provide 35,000 wage award and all of that. The federal government is only saying that it has paid 4 months now, that's up until December. But the NLC is saying that, look, there are so many things that the federal government hasn't fulfilled. Isn't it right for them to actually go to the streets? I know you are saying that, look, they should take a second look at the strike because of the hunger protests. But isn't it right for them to go out there and demand for their rights? Because the government seems to be failing to fulfill its own part of the bargain.
Let me first of all put this out there straight. We are not condemning labor, or nobody seems to disagree with labor on the processes that have led us to where we are today. Our question is only in the timing. You know, labor must learn to pull away from the abuse of strikes as a negotiating instrument, you know, to government. There are better ways of engagement. Look, I think the thing that should be utmost, you know, on the list of the shopping list of labor right now should be wage increase. For Christ's sakes, 30,000 naira a month by the current exchange of 1,650 is $18. $18 a month, which means the average civil servant or the average worker in this country is living on less than half $1 a day. You know, so these are some of the things that we think that labor had no reason to wait until now,
yeah,
you know, to begin to
threaten
government.
Negotiation committee actually, which is in place, and labor is demanding even 1 million naira per month.
Exactly, and we agree, and that engagement can continue. Look, we have a country to protect. Look, if this country boils over and the entire country is thrown into anarchy, there will be no labor, there will be no Nigerian citizens, there will be no government. We are only saying the timing is not the best. We agree with it. Look, we are all Nigerians. We go to the same markets. You know, our children attend the same schools. We feel the bite. Everybody is hungry in Nigeria. I started off by saying that Nigerians are selling their children. I'm sure you must have read that report where a Nigerian man said he was selling 2 of his children so that he could send the other ones to school. It's something that we have never heard about in Nigeria. Nigerians are really biting out of pain. But the timing of this present protest is not the appropriate time because it has the tendency of being hijacked by people who may have sinister reasons, you know, or sinister ideas about, you know, the way government is running. It will blow out of proportion. Labor may not be able to control it. That's the only grounds that we have.
And Achude, let's talk about the preponderance of government to actually take labor unions for granted. I mean, like I told Utuaan here, we've seen these agreements not being fully fulfilled. Though during the week we saw Bayo Onanuga, who's the special advisor on information and strategy to the president alongside the Minister of Labor, reeling out some of the things that they say government has done. And the unions are saying that, look, you haven't really done much. But could there be a better way of engaging with the government than just going on this strike, on the protests that they are saying? Don't forget they issued a 14-day strike notice prior to that of the protest. Now, if you put the protest together and then you go on an indefinite strike, isn't too much? Can our economy actually sustain such?
Let me start with the question you asked me with another question. Can our economy sustain the recklessness and the irresponsibility and the looting of the elites in this country? Has our economy been ever been able to sustain? The where we are today is a result of what has happened in the past how many decades, you know, as a result of the proclivity of the political elites, you know, when it comes to governance. They have been very derelict in their responsibilities to the Nigerian people, obviously. You know, a country that is rich, as Nigeria is, in both human and, you know, mineral resources, has no business flirting with the kind of mind-numbing hunger that we are experiencing today. You know, and then if you're not talking about the consistency of the government, is there a better way for the labor to engage? Tell me what other way. And let's be fair. Let's not just try and be sentimental. Let's be fair. Are we talking about, you know, federal government, you know, versus ASU in all their engagements? Are you saying that ASU at no time, there is no time I'm very sure that ASU has not adhered to whatever decision they had with the government? The government has always been the one that, or unilaterally, decided to do away with whatever agreement they willingly entered into with ASO. Are you talking about the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA? Are you talking about that of the NLC, and other organizations, public unions in this country? At no time has the government ever responded with a sense of responsibility and sensitivity to the agitations of these organizations. Even before protests, and I tell people again, we must not forget what it takes to call a protest, especially a national protest. It's a very difficult decision because you have to even gather everybody from all over the country, all the members of the ESCO, the executives of the state ESCO in every part of this country to gather in Abuja. It takes a lot of money to do that, and a lot of brainstorming, and you have arguments here and there before decisions are made. So sometimes we just think that, he's the president of the NLC or somebody. No, he is only a servant of the leadership of the NLC, across the states, and he's bound by the decision that is taken by the neck of the NLC. So he has no, even if he doesn't want to go along, with whatever is decided, but he is there to protect the interest of the labor union. And so, the government has not shown a track record of consistency, of willingness to abide by agreement. So sometimes you feel sorry for the NLC leadership because the government is making them look foolish and look ineffective and ineffectual. Each time you talked about the 15-point agenda. How many of them have they talked about? So a lot of these things are even deceitful. You talk about, the CNG buses. How many CNG buses have been procured, till now, and all the other points that were enumerated? Is it that why did Labour agree to sit down with them in the first place, or even the second time they sat down with them? Sometimes it takes actual, protests before the government quickly. If a protest takes place on Friday, for instance, or Thursday, the government calls them for a meeting on Sunday, and then they have no choice because of the directives. In terms of the international conventions, they are bound to attend meetings when they are called upon by their social partners, and so they attend these meetings, and the government gives another round of promises, and then the government does not fulfill it. Then you have another round of a protest again. NLC begins to lose its credibility, not just before Nigerians, even before their membership. So this is the situation that the government has put them to, increasingly making a mockery of the leadership of the NLC. The only way they can assert themselves, is to actually show that they can not only back, but they have the capacity to bite. But it is always the government that goads them and pushes them along that direction. So, and for people, lastly, let me just say this.
Oh, okay.
The biggest threat, to governance in this country is the wayward attitude of our political class and the political elites. And it is time we begin to look at the issue of governance very seriously, because that is what is leading to some of these other things that are happening.
All right, Achude, just before I come to Utuaan, do you think NLC still enjoys street credibility? Most times they call for these strikes, and then just a couple of hours or a few hours and then you just hear that they've met with President Tinubu or someone high up there in the government, and they will just leave the meeting smiling. I'm very sure you would have seen some of the pictures being shown on air right now where the NLC or TUC leaders are meeting President Tinubu, and they are all smiles while Nigerians are all on the streets expecting protests in the next few hours or something like that. And then all of a sudden people wake up in the morning and they hear the NLC has called off the strike. You can see them all smiling and all of that. Do you think that they still enjoy street credibility for Nigerians to be able to obey them if they do call for a nationwide protest?
No, let's be truthful, let's be factual. There has been a decline in the respect that Nigerians have for labor in general, not just NLC-TUC. And that is a bit historical. And it started maybe about 3 decades ago. We began to see the gradual diminution of the influence of the NLC and the respect of labor and the respect that Nigerians had for it. Just like the examples you painted, the scenarios you painted are true. And so it has gotten to a level where, for instance, people say the NLC makes a declaration and Nigerians will just poo-poo it and say, no, nothing is going to happen. And in most cases, nothing happens. But whether this action will have the backing of the Nigerian people, Of course, it does. There are many people that do not believe that NLC will come through on this. But if the NLC succeeds in coming through on this, the Nigerian people will respond because they know that it is not an action for the NLC alone. It is an action for all Nigerians. And let me also say this:
very quickly.
That in some of the last interventions by the NLC, some Nigerians were a little bit skeptical because they said they were only fighting for their salaries and not fighting for us. This is fighting for Nigerians. Now, this is not about salary. Salary is just another thing. So this is about the Nigerian people. So NLC needs to do a lot to recover its lost glory, especially in the minds of Nigerians.
All right, and I come to you here, Utuaan. Do you think NLC still enjoys that street credibility? Will people want to actually go out there to join the NLC on the protest on Tuesday and Wednesday? Or your own fear is actually on the part that hoodlums may take advantage of this, people who want to just create chaos and menace on our streets? Your
guess is as good as mine. Look, we've had this 11th hour cancellation of protests and strike intentions over the years. Labour prepares for some kind of action on the eve of the stated date. You hear that the issues have been resolved, the government has agreed, the Labour has agreed. You just shared some pictures, here online. They come out to smiles and all. Nigerians have lost confidence in the leadership of the Labour movement in Nigeria, leading us into some of these things. And to some extent, that is why some of us believe that I understand the pains. I agree with the demands of Labour. Unfortunately, I am saying that the timing is not right. Why? Because Labour does not seem totally in control to be able to put their foot down and say, this is how we intend for this protest to start, and at this point it's supposed to end. If Labour says they're going to hold the protest on the 23rd and 24th, what happens on the 25th and 26th and until the end of the month, where Labour no longer has control? People are already on the street even without being called out by Labour.
And sorry to interject here. That's what some people are saying, that even the NLC seems to be helping the government by organizing this protest in one way, because NLC protests are usually organized. When you see them, they go around with flags and all of that. Compared to what we are seeing now, protests here spontaneously, people not organized and people looting trucks and all of that, that maybe if the NLC holds a strike to allow Nigerians to express their grievances, that could be a controlled form of strike rather than this spontaneous.
And that is the challenge, exactly. The strength of organization. To what extent? Look, our police are overstretched, the military are overstretched, the DSS are overstretched, handling pockets of insurgencies, kidnapping, and all kinds of security situations across the country. If the NLC or the Labour movement throws this country into a situation of chaos, it will be difficult to control. Look, let us look at this from all angles. I think that the president is taking too much bullet for the rest of the country. He's not the only elected person. We'll be hearing so many stories about, for example, last Christmas, we learned from very credible sources that monies were made available to members of the National Assembly to provide palliatives for people during the Yuletide. Have we cared to ask, where did the monies go to? Where did the National Assembly people spend the money on? Nigerians are not holding the National Assembly members accountable. A few days ago, the president of the Senate came out and said that apart from the statutory federation account allocations that are going to states, the state governors have each collected about 30 billion naira each to cushion the effects of hunger and strife in their states. Have we cared to ask, where is the money? Where is the money going to?
One of them denied receiving the 30 billion.
We expect the Nigerian Governors Forum to come out authoritatively and say, and challenge the President of the Senate. We did not get such money, not to get pockets of rebooters, here and there. The President needs to be a little more transparent. The presidency needs to be a little more transparent in be honest with the Nigerian people. This is exactly how much we're investing in trying to sort out these issues. Because you keep on, okay, you say you are protesting against the government. the entire concentration or the focus of the Nigerian people, the anger of the Nigerian people is focused on the center. The center, from the best of our understanding or from the reports that we are getting, is doing its best. But unfortunately, because there's no transparency, we seem not to know what the other elected representatives are getting and the efforts that they are making to cushion the effects of this hunger.
And the state governors, actually, you have raised a very critical situation here, position here. If the state governors also are able to work with the local governments, we could see some advancements. But the thing is that people say that the federal government itself, the attention is more on it because it's not living up to some of its words. For example, the federal government says it was going to release 42,000 metric tons of grains. I mean, it's been like up to 2 weeks now. People haven't really seen them. And the states are waiting to receive that. Though you talked about the issues of the 30 billion naira, nonetheless, if you go by the way we structure our federalism, almost everything seems to be coming from Abuja. So if the state governors are also looking up to Abuja, and they held a National Economic Council meeting just a few days ago, if they had really given them that 30 billion, don't you think that the vice president who chaired that meeting could have been really knocking on these governors?
That is why I said that the government needs to be a little more assertive. The government needs to be, federal government, so to speak, needs to be a little more transparent with the Nigerian people. The people need to understand that you feel our pains and you certainly are carrying out sincere intentions to solve the problem. Let me give you an example. A few days ago, we watched a report on TV. The governor for Niger State got the first tranche of his order of 1,000 tractors. That already takes out 1,000 people from the labor market because those tractors will need to be operated by people. And of course, there are plots attached to it. There are going to be bulldozers clearing the fields. The man told us that he has over 100,000 hectares of arable land that could be cultivated. Misplaced priority by some of our governors. Look, if you go to my home state, Benue, for crying out loud, my state governor has embarked on building an overhead bridge and an underpass at a time like this. So would you rather spend the 30 billion that we hear the federal government has given on provision of tractors for ordinary farmers, or you go ahead and build underpass and build overhead bridges for who to use actually? All right.
Very interesting submission here, Achude. Achude, I mean, he has brought a very, very important point. The state governors, where are they in this discourse? I mean, why does it look like we try to put all the pressure on the federal government? And he has said something. I mean, at this period, shouldn't they be stepping down the construction of all these huge mega infrastructure projects and focusing on what will create a wider impact to reduce hunger?
Yeah, because I think the major reason for that, there is no doubt that sound argument is being made about the roles and responsibilities of even state governors. That is very, very true. But the reality again is that the general direction of the Nigerian economy is driven by the center. The general direction in terms of microeconomic policies, macroeconomic policies, and the kind of economic agenda that the federal government wants to run. So it is on that basis, for instance, that state actors also, model their actions again, with regards to that of the center itself. And so people generally, when things are generally bad, people, especially when it comes to the issues of economy and insecurity and the rest, people look up to the center. And it is simply because the kind of political system we are practicing, and that's why people have often said, look, this system is not working. This presidential system is not working. We need to do something much more different, that we had something that worked in the past. So perhaps all of these things are also playing along. But the reality is not just that it is the form of a presidential, a presidential system of government that we're running. It is also, or it largely has to do with the performance of state actors in the country, and the fact that even with the defect, the defectiveness of the Nigerian constitution as acknowledged by some people, the state actors are not even doing a bit in terms of the provisions of the constitution itself. And so they're in violation of the constitution. you know. And so and of course people talk about why the government is enjoying how many items are on the exclusive list of exclusive list of the government. Over 68 items. The government is enjoying that, enjoying the largesse that comes with it, enjoying the pomp and pageantry of federal power. So why not devolve some of these responsibilities to you know, the other branches of, you know, other segments of you know, the country, other states in the country. They have not done that, and then they want to, you know, absolve themselves of the responsibility that comes from their inability to fulfill their responsibilities.
All right, interesting submission there. We'll just have to leave it there at the moment. And just before I let you go very quickly, Utuaan, should the protest go ahead or not? Very quickly, 30 seconds.
I'll look into the camera while I say this. I think it is not the proper time for protest to... Nigeria cannot survive a protest right now. I will instead ask the president, Mr. President, you are the only elected person across the country. It is between you and the vice president. Do not outsource the leadership of this country into the hands of governors and members of the National Assembly. The president should immediately rejig his economic team, stamp down on corruption, do something about our security, improve security, especially around the farming belts of the middle of the north central region. We need to place back food on the table of Nigerians. Nigerians are hungry. The entire country, either the legislature or the executive, should be focused more now on providing food for our people.
All right, we must thank you so much. Conrad Utuaan is a public affairs analyst and is based in the Nigerian capital here, Abuja. We must thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And of course, our own Achude is an African affairs analyst and has helped us to understand all the intrigues that are ongoing with the proposed nationwide protests by the Nigerian Labour Congress, although the TUC, which is another labour center, has asked to be excused from that strike, that it may lead to anarchy. And of course, this is where we'll have to leave it for this segment.